Margaret Hayes was a quiet woman, known to her neighbors for feeding stray cats, bringing tarts to bake sales and keeping her garden tidy, even after her husband's passing. She lived in a 2-bedroom cottage near the edge of town, surrounded by books and memories. The silence of her home never bothered her until one October morning when it did. She sat at breakfast, staring at the empty seat across from her, as if waiting for someone who never arrived. With no plan, she grabbed her coat, keys, and the weight inside her, and walked out the door. That's how she found herself at Thesity Orphanage, a place she hadn't visited since volunteering one Christmas years ago. Something pulled her through the gates, like a tide or perhaps fate. Inside, the rooms buzzed with children's laughter, babies' cries, and volunteers' chatter. Then she saw him, a baby boy sitting silently in a bassinet by the window, his wide eyes, icy blue and clear as glass, staring at nothing and everything. He wore an oversized red hoodie, his dark skin flawless. A tiny bracelet of cloth and buttons adorned his wrist, with 2 faded letters. Ka. Margaret asked a staff member his name. No name on record, the woman replied. Left here 2 weeks ago. No one's come looking. Probably a border case. Happens too often. When Margaret asked about adoption, the woman shook her head. No papers. The system's still sorting it out. Margaret looked at the boy again, his calm gaze unwavering. I'll take him, she whispered. Months of bureaucracy, court filings, and special permissions followed, but Margaret never wavered. She named him Cairo, and when he was finally home, held him close, feeling something shift inside her. Cairo grew quickly. He rarely cried, almost never fell ill, and showed unusual intelligence early on. By 2, he mimicked any sound. By 5, he read labels and maps. By 7, he solved puzzle boxes and fixed Margaret's broken toaster like he'd done it before. But there was more. In his sleep, Cairo spoke words Margaret couldn't place, rhythmic, melodic syllables. Not gibberish, but a language. One night, he woke whispering, Kafaro Amma. Kafaro Amma. Margaret recorded it and consulted a local language professor, who said it resembled fragments of an old dialect from a nearly extinct African coastal tribe. Stunned, Margaret asked Cairo about it. I don't know how I know, he said. It's just in me. She didn't push further. By 10, Cairo asked harder questions. Where do I come from? Why are my eyes different? What does my bracelet mean? Margaret shared what little she knew and promised. If you want to search, I'll help you. He nodded but dove into books on identity, cryptography, African political history, and computer science instead. By 17, he built secure databases for nonprofits, always wearing his bracelet like armor. One winter, Cairo found something. Scanning archived immigration files, he noticed a faint seal on a 2002 document, matching a symbol etched on his bracelet's plastic bead. He dug deeper. The seal belonged to the Kadura Initiative, a defunct organization tied to Kamari Aayatu, a West African political figure from Vantara, exiled after a failed coup. Cairo's breath caught. Running facial recognition on old government photos, he compared a childhood image of himself to Kamari's. The result, a 92% genetic match. Kamari had vanished 2 decades ago, rumored dead, but he'd had an infant son, reportedly hidden during his regime's collapse. That son was never found until now. Cairo sat back, the bracelet heavy on his wrist. Who had left him at the orphanage, and why? That night at dinner, Margaret noticed his distance. Are you all right, love? She asked. Cairo met her eyes. I found something. Something big. Her fork paused. How big? He lifted the bracelet. This isn't just a memory. It's a key. Margaret's heart pounded. She didn't know what he'd uncovered, but she felt its weight. Cairo didn't sleep that night. His mind raced the bracelet, the seal, the match to Kamari Aayatu. His life was built on a secret. He wasn't just an orphan. He was the son of a man who once held power in a nation torn by corruption and rebellion. History had come knocking. He thought of Margaret, who loved him without caring about his origins. But he couldn't ignore them now. He had to know everything. With Margaret's blessing, they flew to a secure archive in Geneva, where the Kadira Initiative's remnants were stored. The bracelet's central bead hid a microchip, encrypted. "Can you crack it?" Cairo asked the tech expert. The expert smirked. "Most couldn't, but you wrote half the tools we're using." 2 hours later, the encryption broke, revealing scanned birth certificates, personal logs, escape routes, coded letters, and a grainy 2003 video. A man in a dark suit appeared, Kamari Aayatu, holding a baby. "If this message is found, the initiative failed," he said. "They'll call me a tyrant, but I was trying to save my country. This child M will never know me, but he is my legacy." Cairo froze. The file also revealed offshore humanitarian funds Kamari had hidden to rebuild Vantara, accessible only by his son's biometric DNA. Kairos. Margaret was the first person he called. "I don't know what to do with this," he confessed. "It's too much. You were never too much for me," she said gently. "If your father trusted you with this, he believed you'd do better than he did." Cairo stared at the bracelet. He hadn't been abandoned. He'd been chosen. Instead of chasing power, Cairo launched a global nonprofit, using the funds to build clean water systems, schools, and tech centers, starting in Vantara and expanding worldwide. Journalists speculated about the mystery donor behind Project Cairo, but his face remained unknown. One afternoon, Cairo returned home to find Margaret on the porch sipping tea. "I saw a headline," she said. "Anonymous benefactor rebuilds hospital in Cairo province." He chuckled. "I like that one." She leaned forward. "But you're still my boy, right?" His voice softened. "Always." He rested his head on her shoulder as kids laughed down the block. In that moment, Cairo, the boy with blue eyes who fixed toasters and whispered in his sleep, knew who he was, not just a fallen leader's son, not just a name on a bracelet, but a man raised by love, shaped by truth, and trusted with a legacy to heal. He wasn't searching anymore. He was home. Later that year, Cairo spoke anonymously at a UN Youth Summit, behind a frosted panel, about impacting 400,000 lives in 2 years. "I was raised by someone who taught me love doesn't ask where you come from," he said. Applause echoed. A UN official offered him a meeting with Vantara's government, suggesting he could run for office. Cairo smiled. "I'm not a kingmaker. I'm a gardener, here to plant something better." That night, he flew home to Margaret, who was knitting a sweater. "You're amazing," she said, having watched his speech online. "You watched?" he asked, surprised. She nodded. "Always." They sat by the fireplace, sipping cocoa. In Cairo's heart, the fire that once burned for answers now glowed for others searching. He vowed to help them find not just roots, but peace. Across the sea, a tree planted in his name bloomed every spring.